Most first-timers going into the Vault of Incarnates and they approach the Primal Council will probably see this fight as one of the more intimidating from a mechanic standpoint. In reality, it's actually not that difficult. Welcome back to the Raid Guide series. Today's video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about the Primal Council. As always, these guys are from the tank's perspective, but I will always be discussing what happens for both the DPS and the healers. The Primal Council is a mix of 4 different bosses, which encompasses one large boss encounter. This fight does require every single person to follow a specific mechanic, and in order to be successful with this fight, you do want to cleave down all 4 of these bosses. Now let's talk about what the tanks are going to be doing for this fight. On the initial pull, you're going to want to try to get all 4 bosses next to each other. Now you can group them directly in the middle of the map. If you want to pull them off a little bit to the side, you're more than welcome to do that. I usually like to pull them a little bit back because during some of the other mechanics, having a little bit more space always helps. Now you're going to want to have one tank on Opal Fang, and you'll have another tank on Embar Firepath. These are the 2 bosses you guys are going to be focusing on the majority of the fight. Now the tank that is holding onto Opal Fang, you're going to want to look out for an ability called Crush. This is your main tank swap ability, so tanks you guys are going to be swapping off every time Opal casts this Crush. During Crush, make sure to use most of your defensive cooldowns, just in case you have a positioning issue or if your off-tank isn't paying attention. And for Embar, you're going to want to make sure to face her away from the raid. Periodically, she will cast Slashing Blaze, which does a cone, large frontal blaze attack. It does a lot of damage, so DPS and healers do not stand behind the tanks by any means. Quick note, if you're using Bigwigs or DBM, you'll hear for the tank swap callout, so make sure to pay attention. Now, one quick note for the tanks is that there are going to be times where you have a lot of stuff on the ground. It's okay to walk the bosses back a little bit. If you need to reposition them from time to time, that's totally fine. But for the most part, if your raid is doing all of the mechanics accordingly, you won't have to move them very much. Now, let's talk about some of the other abilities between Dathia and Kadros. Now, for the DPS, you guys are going to want to focus on Dathia and Kadros because they both have interruptible abilities. Each of their respective abilities does about 35,000 damage to a random player, so make sure you have somebody always interrupting these abilities. Now, periodically, Opal Fang will summon these earthen pillars, which will pop up randomly on the map. These pillars are very important because Dathia's main ability is the conductive mark. A random member in your group is going to get hit with this conductive mark, and they need to touch the pillars in order to drop the mark off. You have to be very careful with this, as if you start to pass through players in your raid, you will pass that mark off to them, which could cause a lot of positioning issues, so make sure you're aware of your surroundings and give yourself a good amount of distance. This also means do not run to a pillar that is near a tank, because if you pass that off to the tank, it's going to create a lot of problems. So make sure to use the pillars accordingly to drop those marks off as quickly as possible. Now, also during this time, Ember Firepath is going to summon some fire pools. You can't miss them, they're pretty large. You're going to be using these pools of lava in conjunction with Kadros' Primal Blizzard. When Kadros starts channeling Primal Blizzard, you're going to have to touch these lava pools. If you don't touch the pools and you reach 10 stacks of Primal Blizzard, you will become frozen solid. It's recommended to touch the lava pool by at least 5 stacks, and it's quick. It's just one touch, in and out. It's usually best to do it quickly because you will be slowed down over time. Tanks, you also need to be doing this as well. And there you have it. That is the fight. A quick recap. Tanks, make sure you guys are swapping off of Opal Fang's Crush and keeping Embar away from the raid during the AoE. DPS, make sure you guys are interrupting both Kadros and Dathia. Do not spread the conductive marks and make sure to touch the pillars to drop them. And then put your foot in the lava during the Primal Blizzard. So focus on getting some good cleave in there and get everybody down as quickly as possible. Hope this video helped you guys out, and I'll see you in the next one.